Good morning, everybody. It is Fraud Watch Friday. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about a subject that a lot of people wonder about and a lot of people kind of already know is important, but that's passwords and specifically strong passwords. So many people have weak passwords, passwords that are already out on the dark web or something, passwords that can be hacked. So, what do you do about that? Passwords really are the first line of defense that you have against fraud. So, to talk us through it, all the aspects of passwords, what makes a good password, how you can manage your passwords, I'm going to bring in our cyber expert, Dave Morrow, joining us again. Hi, Dave. How's things going today?
Good, Bruce. How are you?
Oh, doing okay. This is my last day before a little vacation. We're
Well,
going
have
over to the
fun.
east side of the state to get some sun. So, how's things up there in Bellingham today?
Oh, they're nice. It's cool up here today, and it's not like it was the other day. So it's a lot nicer up here today than it has been in the past week or two, I guess.
All right. So passwords, people know it's important, but maybe they don't fully understand why. So, what can you tell us about the need for a secure password?
Well, passwords have been around for a long time, and we've talked about that before. And they are, when you only had one or two things on the internet that you did, you could basically keep your passwords on a piece of paper. And we always used to tell people, don't write down your passwords, remember them. Well, now people have hundreds of passwords, a lot of them. And I mean, in my password manager, I have like probably over 300 passwords and websites that we've used over the years. And so it's hard to keep track of them. So now we've come up with, as opposed to having you use the same password on multiple sites, like the same one for your news website that you use for your bank or that you use for your doctor's office. Uh, we've always been telling you to have different passwords for all your different accounts. And so we've come up with this uh, tool, this technology called a password manager. And that's basically a way to keep your uh, user IDs and passwords for all your different websites secure and encrypted, either on your laptop or desktop or in the cloud or both. And that way, the tool, the password manager, will automatically recognize when you establish a new account at a new website, when you sign on, say you get a new bank account or you go to a new investment advisor or whatever, and you sign on to their website for the first time. It will recognize that you have done that, and it will ask you, hey, do you want me to save this for you? And then they're out. From there on, when you go back to that website, a lot of them will basically fill in your user ID and password automatically, and you don't have to remember it. So it's a secure way. Password managers are a secure way to keep you, allow you to have hundreds of different passwords without having to remember them all or write them all down or something like that. Or worst of all, use the same password over and over again for different sites.
So, I was talked into getting a password manager after one of your presentations.
I mean, yeah.
So I have some questions about that. But first of all, what is wrong with using the same password over and over? Because it's easier to remember, and as long as no one else knows it, what's the issue with that?
Well, especially if you've done it over a long period of time, almost every password, there's been so many data breaches out there. Companies have been breached, banks have been breached, the U.S. government, the VA, the various DoD offices, the IRS, all of those agencies have had data breaches. And if they, part of the thing that the hackers are after when they go into those systems is user IDs and passwords, account information for all the users, because they know that people are lazy. And if they use the same password over and over again, then if the hacker can get one password that they know works, they have tools out there called credential stuffers that they basically put the password and the user ID information into the credential stuffer program, and it automatically goes out and tries thousands of different sites with the same password and the correct user ID. It knows what formats the user IDs are on various sites, and it'll try all these different banks and all these different credit unions and the IRS and all those things, because they figure you've reused your password somewhere, and they know it's a pretty high percentage payoff to do that. And so reusing your password is, first of all, it's, if one of them gets compromised, it's easy to have a whole bunch of more important accounts compromised too. So if they can get your password to, CNN or Newsweek or online or whatever, then if you use the same password for your bank, then they have your bank account password too, just by doing this password spraying or credential stuffing. And it doesn't matter if you've got, they'll send out they'll try thousands of accounts, and it doesn't matter if you've got an account there or not. Eventually they may find one where you do. That's the main reason, is if when one of them is compromised, you have a single point of failure that a whole bunch of others can be compromised also.
One of the things that I've heard you talk about that I thought was a great idea is that the idea of a password is kind of outmoded, and perhaps the term passphrase
Yeah,
might be a more secure thing. Could you explain that? What you mean by that, and how you would actually do it?
sure. Well, password is basically just that. It's a word, but we tell people don't use an English language word because you can use a dictionary online to guess passwords by running it against an English language or a German or whatever language dictionary. So we tell people not to do that, to have letters and numbers, random numbers and special characters and such, upper and lower case. But the problem is, again, it's really hard to remember. So one of the things that the government has now said that they recommend is that you can take a phrase that and use the first letters of every word in that phrase as your password, and that way only you know it. As long as you don't forget the phrase, you're in good shape. There's also some programs, some websites that will actually let you do a phrase, and you just remember that phrase. And there are a few password managers that will support that kind of generating a phrase for you and storing the phrase for you too. It's just a way to augment. Like I said, passwords have been around a long time. There's a lot of weaknesses. So we've done several different tricks to try to augment the effectiveness of passwords to keep them usable and effective against hackers.
And how would someone go about generating a passphrase? I have to say that you shared one that you had used,
Yeah.
and I would never have guessed it in a million years because it's personal to you.
Yeah.
So like if you could share that.
Well, yeah, that's what you do basically. You share. I mean, you think of a password that has a lot of meaning to you, or a passphrase that has a lot of meaning to you, and that only you know, or maybe you and your spouse or significant other or somebody in your family knows, and then so nobody else would know it. And so that way it may be a personal music preference. That was mine. It might be a football team or a hockey team, or it may be some other thing that you can use in a phrase that you just won't forget, or it may be something, your life's goal, right? Or whatever that only you know, or very few people know, and then you turn it into a phrase and use that in some manner, as opposed to just going to the dictionary and picking up a word or using the word password as a word.
Yeah, and actually the key there is that it's very hard to have like an automated search for a phrase
Yeah,
because if you're using a dictionary program, that's looking for words as you just mentioned, it's not going to have a phrase, especially if it's a unique to you
yeah,
phrase, and you add your personal music preference. I actually have mine based on my preference, and you probably would not guess what it is. So I won't I won't share. But I just thought that was a really clever thing. And then also, if the password does need like a symbol and a number, you can incorporate that
yeah,
into your phrase. And the advantage is, of course, that if it's a phrase that has meaning to you and is personal, it's easy to remember,
right,
almost more easy than a password. Because what I had been doing was generating new passwords based on the site or based on what I was going through in life at that time. And I ended up with this password list of all these passwords that were really random. No one could guess them, but the problem was I couldn't guess them either. I couldn't
yeah,
remember them. So having a passphrase instead of a password, just kind of put that in your mind. Instead of
yep,
word, think a phrase. And that's actually kind of a good segue into the idea of a password manager. A
Yeah.
passphrase and a really strong password is something you would use as a password manager. But maybe you could explain to us what a password manager is, what the advantages of it are, and how we could actually use one.
Okay. So Password Manager again is a program that you can download. There's a bunch of different ones, and we'll talk about which one, how to choose a good one, and show you a resource here in a little bit. But they all share the characteristics that they are either based in the web or in the cloud or on your computer. They install a little app on your computer or on your phone, and basically it stores your passwords in an encrypted format. You can share them between use the same password manager on a bunch of different computers. We have like, I don't know, a dozen computers, 2 dozen computers in our household, and they all share the same password manager. And so we share that file, and it works really, really well. And I've used one for years. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you a couple of them. And again, this is just a demo of a couple of common password managers that rate pretty highly. We don't endorse any of them. AARP doesn't endorse a single one of these, but these are examples of good ones. What you don't want to do is just go on Google and Google password managers, because the first 5 responses you'll get to your search will be ads. Some of them will be legitimate companies, but some of them won't be. And it's just a hacker trying to rent space and show up at the top of your search results. So you'll pick his program, his password manager, which in reality will steal your password. So you want to use some third party, don't just go on there and Google it, use some rating service and really put some due diligence into choosing a password manager.
Yeah, that's almost the worst thing you can do is install a bad or even fraudulent password manager, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to be able to demonstrate that.
Yeah, I'm going to show a couple of them, and I'll just basically show how they work when you use them to sign into something.
Okay.
So the first one I'll show.
All right, let me bring your computer up on screen there. Okay. There we go.
Okay, can you see my LastPass?
I can, yes.
Okay. Now this is LastPass. This is one of the ones that has been around a long time, and it's free. There's a free version and there's a premium version that like $5 a month or something. And they also have a family plan where you can share a bunch of different accounts. And this is in general, the free versions of all these tools are going to be a lot more limited and have very little capability comparatively little capability compared to the pay version. In LastPass's case, there is a free version, but it's only good for one device. If you get the premium version or the free or the family version, you can use it on multiple devices and share it across devices and things like that. So what this is this is my vault. When you download any password manager, the first thing you're going to do is it'll install on your system, and you'll be asked to create a master password. And that's the most important password you can have. Make sure it's a really strong password, because that's basically the key to your vault that has all your other passwords in it. We used to say, don't forget it, and really you shouldn't. It is a very important thing, and you need to write it down somewhere. But there are ways to recover it. At least with LastPass, you can recover your master password if you need to. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but you can do it. So once you sign on to LastPass, you have what's called the vault, which is where all your passwords and other things you can store in here are. So in this vault, you can store passwords. You can also store secure notes, or you can store addresses securely. You can store credit card numbers in here securely. Again, it's encrypted, so your numbers are not available. If you lose your device, the numbers are still encrypted. You can also store bank account information in this. But let's go back to the passwords. So this is basically this is one of the 2 ones we're going to talk about today. And again, if you once you type it in, this is an address card for it. It basically, this would be like an address card for somebody else. Let me show you this account. This is I'll do this one. CNN. I have CNN loaded to this. So when I first went to CNN.com and established my account, uh, I gave myself this username and I established this password, and and you can get the password to do that. See, but this is this is automatically done. LastPass recognizes that I'm to a site that it hasn't seen before, and so when I get on there and sign in and create the password and such on the website, LastPass and most other ones will do the same thing. Will pop up and say, "Hey, this is a new site. Do you want to save this?" And I said yes, and so that's how it's saved. But you can also put notes on here, and you can also have advanced settings where it'll autofill when you go to CNN. It'll automatically fill in your user ID and password, and you can also have it auto log in, so you never even see it do all that. But this is typical of how most password managers that we're going to talk about work. They have a vault of some sort, and they store your information encrypted. All this is encrypted. It's encrypted both in LastPass's case, both on your laptop or desktop, as well as there's a version in the cloud so that you can move between devices. So let me show you how it works with CNN. So here's the CNN website, and you can see where it logs in. And so I just click on log in, and it'll come up and say it'll log me into my account. I tell it to, and in LastPass's case, sometimes you have to go up here and look at your vault. Right there it says, and it clicks, see, it's put my username, and then it logs me in. So, well, it's supposed to log me in. There it goes. It's just having a slow morning.
That's always when we do a live demo.
Yeah, it works great when we're not doing it live, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So here it comes.
Looks like it's logging you in there then.
Yeah. So it logs me in, and as you see now, I'm in my account. So there's another one we want to show, which is very similar, and that's called Dashlane. Dashlane is also a free. They also have a free version and a paid version. They have, the paid version is going to be like $3 or $4 a month. It's not, you're not going to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And like LastPass, you download it, you sign up for it, establish a master password, download the app and put it on your computer. And then when you sign into you can either manually add a new website. See what says add new, and it'll come up and say, what's the URL, the website name, www. whatever, your username, put a password in there, or you can generate a password right here. It will generate it, and you can change the rules for how many characters and upper and lowercase and all that. But it'll generate you a password for you. And I use this extensively to generate those really hard passwords to guess. You can have a name, and you can even file it into a category. So you have bank sites and news magazines and financial services and other things. So here you can see it's pretty much like LastPass in terms of some of the things it can do. But again, it'll tell you personal information. You can put notes and payments. This one, as well as LastPass, will also run security checks on your password file to tell you if you have duplicate passwords, if you're using it more than one time. If you have weak passwords, it'll tell you. If you upgrade on Dashlane, they also do some monitoring on the dark web, where they will tell you if you have your passwords appear on the dark web, your user ID and password. And they have Dashlane has a VPN built in. And again, if you upgrade to a higher paid version, this is the free version, you can get the VPN on this. I have no idea how well it works. I've not used it because I use another VPN. But again, they're pretty easy to use. The only problem that some people run into, and Bruce, I know you ran into this, is if you use a web browser that has a built-in keyring or keychain that stores it also, like Google has a keychain. Google Chrome has a keychain built into it, and it'll also store your user IDs and passwords. And sometimes if you're trying to use both, they conflict. and you'll change it on one but forget to change it on the other, change your password on the other, and you have problems. And I had that problem, so I basically quit using Google Keychain because of that. But if you keep it straight and you're diligent about it, I'm not diligent about doing that. You could probably use both of them, but me, I'm just not that kind of diligent. So one of the things I didn't talk about is there's extensions for your browsers. There's the LastPass extension right there. Here's the Dashlane extension, and if you click on it, it'll it'll bring up your vault and everything here. Here it's the CNN website, so I can copy my password, or I can go to the CNN website, and it'll log me in automatically. It should anyway. It, of course, did do in the rehearsal, and so. But again, it's pretty easy to use. It's not necessarily a real again. Now see, I can do the login here, and Dashlane will fill in for me the user ID and password. So let me get it to do that. Sometimes you have to copy the user ID and password from it. So here's where you copy it, and you can do the email address there, and it'll sign in. So that's pretty much the same way it uses the password manager. Now, a lot of people ask us, recommend a password manager. Well, we can't do that, but what I can tell you to do is go to a site that will do the work for you and doing due diligence. In this case, PC Magazine, which is a hobbyist computer magazine, has a lab that does all kinds of testing of all kinds of different products, and you can see all the different things that they do. And they do security as one of their categories, and password managers is one of the other categories that they use. And so they'll tell you every year they do a kind of a head-to-head comparison and rate what their views are for the password managers that are free, as well as the password managers that are that you pay for. And so this is the reviews that they've just done, and then there's some comparison information also on them. So, and again, you can see, this year's this is their there's several different types: Keeper, KeePass, Kaspersky, Dashlane. All of these are on there. LastPass is here. NordPass is another one that a lot of people have been starting to use. So that's one place you can go to, is PCMag.com. Will give you kind of a good unbiased review of these things. It changes every year though, and you don't want to change this password manager every year. But if you go to one of these reviews, it'll tell you the pros and the cons about the various different password managers, and then you can choose the one that most fits your lifestyle, which is what you want to do.
Great. And we should also point out that we are not endorsing PC Magazine as a single source either.
No.
That's just a name, that is known. It's kind of a trusted source in the consumer and technology world, but there are certainly other sites and sources. So don't just take one thing. ARP has our fraud site, and I'll put the address up for that. There's a lot of information on all kinds of tech products, so you can check that out too. But PC Magazine is a well-known source that's been around for a long time. So that's kind of what you would look for in terms of choosing a password manager based on a review, is kind of look at that source too.
Yeah.
And we have got a question, and
Okay.
and I'd like to thank Kay for this. She's asking, I guess, about what you mentioned about the Google autofill feature, and Kay is asking, does Firefox have a keychain built in?
Yeah, I think they do. I haven't used Firefox in a long time, but I think they have started doing that. Google had a keychain a long time ago. And I think, when one of them, Microsoft, Google, and Firefox are the three kind of big browsers that most people use. And when one of them does something like that, the other two usually follow along pretty quickly. So I think Firefox has some sort of password storage or password manager keychain established in there. And if you're having problems, if you download a password manager and you have problems where you're out of sync and your passwords, you're getting up the password is not the correct one. Well, it could be that it got saved to the wrong place, and you may have to disable the keychain if you really want to use your password manager.
All right. So I guess the answer is yes.
Yes.
Actually,
Yeah. The answer is yes.
All kinds of things have auto fill and auto save kind of functions in there. So thank you very much for that, Kay. We definitely appreciate your question, and that certainly is a good question. It isn't just a feature of the Google Chrome browser. And I wanted to ask you about the free versions. You mentioned there are free versions, but the paid versions are going to be better, and that's not surprising. I mean, probably the free version is kind of a teaser to the paid version, but are the free versions worth trying out, and maybe they're enough for some people?
Well, they may be enough. You also, when if you're trying, the free version lets you use a whole bunch of different ones. And what I would do is I would pick a handful of accounts and pick out a couple of them that you want to try, download the free version, load it up with your handful of accounts, and see how it works. You can always delete them later. One of the things about the free versions on some of these tools and on any security tool is that the free version is only good for 30 days, and then you have to take it down. It disables itself, or you pay for it to upgrade in the paid version. So make sure you understand, if you like 2 or 3 of them from looking at whatever comparison site you look at, make sure you understand what the terms are, so that you don't say, oh, if I want to use this one, and start loading it up, and then 30 days later you're suddenly one day faced with either pay up or stop using our product kind of thing from the tool. Because just make sure you know what's expected. But the best thing is to use the free version as kind of a sample of how it works, and really it's going to come down to how convenient and easy for you personally it is to use.
Speaking of convenient, one of the things that I was attracted to on the Passlane Manager that I chose but haven't got totally working yet is cross platform or cross device, I guess, features, like using it on my phone and using it on my tablet. Is that something that you recommend, getting one password manager and then installing it on your other devices?
Absolutely. I think, especially for the long term, I mean, I've used a password manager for going on 10 years now. And so for the long term, if you're going to do that, I think what we're going to see in the long term is that the PC and the laptop and all that are still going to be available to buy, but the popularity is going to be in mobile devices, your phone or your iPad. So whatever you choose, and most of the ones that we talked about, or I showed you on the PC Magazine thing, most of them have mobile device versions, as well as laptop or desktop versions. And again, that's one of the good reasons for using the paying for their services. One of the other tricks is if you use the free one, then you can only use it on one type of device. You can use it only on your laptop, or you can use it only on a mobile device, and you can't go through different types of devices. But like I said, we have the same one that we use on all of our mobile devices, all our iPads, iPods, phones, computers, all the ones we have. Even I have a Google. I can't remember it now. The Google operating system.
Chromebook.
Chromebook.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a Chromebook that I bought, and I've installed my password manager on that, and it works like a champ.
Great. Well, I think we should let people know that there is a little bit of a setup on these things, and I've been working through it, and I haven't got the mobile stuff to work yet. But one thing I do notice is I get a lot less of those "your password is incorrect" errors, and I go, nope, I'm sure this is the right password. I'm typing it in, and it's incorrect, and that drives me nuts when they say, well, this is the only password I have. That happens a lot less, so that's probably worth it right there. But I think the question that people always will have about password managers is, what is the situation with them, then them being the password manager company, having a master password that unlocks all your other passwords. Is there a danger in that? And how do security professionals view that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a danger. I mean, a couple of the companies that own the password managers have, in the last 5 or 10 years, had hacking incidents. These guys are really, really concerned about this, and they work really hard. So I think they're probably, as companies, fairly well secured. But there's a risk in anything like that. And so the idea is to weigh the risks, right? Is it more risky to have the same password you use between multiple sites? Or is it more risky to hand over a strong password manager to a company that you've done some research on and are fairly confident about? I think that second is less risky, but there's always going to be risk, and you don't want to ever say that this is 100% the way to do it, because there is no such thing as a silver bullet solution in security. There's not going to be one thing that solves everything.
Yeah, I had that question, and it kind of stopped me for a while, until I heard experts like yourself talk about the dangers of having just a Word document on your laptop,
Yeah.
or if you just have like a piece of paper in your home. I mean, those are not secure either. And I actually asked a guy who pretty well, a guy who's an ex con man, an ex hacker, and pretty nefarious character who's now gone straight. But he claimed he could just hack anything, and it seemed like he could. But I asked him that question, and he was totally pro password manager. So I kind of took that as a real endorsement. Well, I think we've covered this probably in pretty good depth. If you're concerned about password safety, and you should be, because if your passwords are hacked, especially for your important financial online accounts or some other account, it can be pretty disastrous. Is there any final password wisdom you want to leave us with, Dave?
No, just make sure that all your passwords are really strong and secure, and don't use English language passwords, and don't use the password or 1 2 3 4 5 6 or any of those ones we call the stupid password, or I call the stupid passwords. I get fussed at by people about that, but I mean, 1 2 3 4 5 6 or anything on your keyboard, QWERTY or any of that stuff. Everybody knows that. Hackers, that's the first thing they check. If they have a password, an account they're trying to break into, they'll try to brute force it a little bit, and using all those well-known passwords are pretty easily broken. So anything having to do with your pets or sports teams or anything like that is pretty easy to guess. Don't use those, because it's just eventually it's going to bite you.
Yeah. Well, actually, Kay is saying thank you for our content today. Thank you, Kay, for being in the audience and asking a question. We really appreciate that. And if you have questions about your personal situation with fraud, and it doesn't have to be about passwords, it can be about anything. And especially if you're concerned about like a relative that you think is being defrauded, or if you've gotten a solicitation like an email or a text or something, and you have questions about it, I just wanted to mention the ARP fraud helpline, which is a phone service from ARP. It's free. It's staffed by volunteers, including Dave is one of our volunteers. He gives his time to answer questions. And our volunteers are trained by ARP in fraud topics, and they then also get a lot of experience talking to real people on the phone about real problems. So if you do have a question about any kind of fraud-related question, could be anything, and if they don't know, they can find out for you. And that is 877-908-3360. It's totally free, toll free, and there is no fee. That's a service of ARP that we provide because we want to fight fraud, basically. And I also mentioned our ARP Fraud Watch website, which is arp.org/fraud. And we have got a ton of resources there. If you just want to look online, if it has to do with fraud and older people, especially, we've got a ton of information there. But fraud does not just hit older people; it hits everyone. It tends to be a little more devastating for people who are older, because sometimes your life savings can be at risk. That's really the big thing. You aren't losing $40 to a charity scam. You're losing your nest egg. So, and one more service that we have is our speakers bureau, and that is volunteers like Dave and myself will give um, fraud presentations, and they're not specific generally to one topic unless you ask for that. We do have presentations on cyber fraud, but our basic presentation covers fraud in general. Is kind of a primer or a starter, what you need to know, but it's got a lot of great information. That is free. We have a group of volunteers who will give presentations online, or we're starting to think about in person. I don't think we've actually taken the step to actually book an in-person presentation, but it could be for your church group, school group, Kiwanis group, any sort of group who you think would benefit from hearing fraud information from ARP. That's also a free service, and you can see more information about that at arp.org/WA Speakers Hub. And if you'd like to share this content, this recording, we are live now, obviously, but you can tell this is live. But if you'd like to share this with somebody, they can watch a recording either on Facebook or on YouTube. And both of those channels, if you just search for ARP Washington, you'll find us. But below there are the actual links that you can send people. So if you want to pass this information on, we definitely appreciate it, because we are doing our best to get what we know about fraud, which is growing every day, out there to people. So I think that is all the information. Dave, is there anything that we have forgotten?
I think we're pretty good. I think we've overloaded folks with password data today.
Well, this is supposed to be a short, quick tip, and I think there is real actionable tips in there. But as always, we sort of get into it, and sort of away it goes. But
yep.
but the basic thing is, don't do what I did for a long time, is have your password be the name of your cat, which was also something that you could find in the dictionary. So I have left that behind. So hackers out there, don't try and guess the name of my cat. And so with that, thank you very much, Dave. Thank you to all of you for being in the audience today. Next week, Dave will be back with our co-host, Ann O'Callahan, and that's an Ask Me Anything thing with Dave putting on his cyber expert hat, and he's got an extensive background in cyber safety, and it's not going to be cyber safety like high level. It's going to be protecting your bank account, protecting your email, protecting your computer, protecting your Wi-Fi, all that stuff. So that'll be back here, same place, same time, 10:30 next Friday. And so with that, we will see you then. I'm going to put the FraudWatch Network phone number and website up again. And once again, thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot.